Amplify, a podcast dedicated to accounting firm growth. I am Katie Toland, your host for this season, where we're diving into all things business development and what that role looks like within an accounting firm. In this specific episode, we're going to be exploring what it takes to manage a salesperson and a sales team. Joining me is Nikki Bergersen, Principal and Director of Sales and Business Development at Rehmann. Welcome, Nikki. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So Raymond's a larger firm. Can you kind of give us a feeling for what your sales team looks like within your organization and what your role is within that team?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Katie. So we are on the accounting side of the firm. We are a team of 7 BDEs who specifically hunt, sell, cross sell. They do all of the above. We also have some specialists in the firm that specialize on the technology side, kind of a different animal there and a different sales team. We're connected, we work together, we pass leads back and forth, but a different animal. So for the accounting side, as well as, selling everything the firm has to offer, we're about a team of 7. And my role there is to manage that team as far as sales go and business development. I also sell in a smaller market. I kind of had to size that down a little bit so I have time to take on all my other roles. But that team is basically very seasoned salespeople that we were fortunate enough to bring into the firm. None of them had accounting sales experience, yet they all have a pretty big resume of sales experience and success.
And so your team isn't replacing partner selling, right? Are you kind of out in there to just like do more? What's your role? How do you work with the partners?
Yeah, that's a great question. In our firm, we really embrace the thought of the team sell. I don't think replacing a partner, at least for us, would work because it's something that we have to know on my team a little bit about everything the firm does. Well, that's a lot, right? That's hundreds of different services that we could possibly plug in. And so, where my team comes in versus where the partner comes in is really at the beginning, where the BDE may be warming up a lead or kind of uncovering what the situation may be. And they're using that special skill set that the team has called listening, right? We listen with a different pair of ears, if you will, than our typical partner would do, because they may have a specialty in a certain area, right? And they're there to sell tax or whatever it may be. So typically the BD will warm it up, they'll listen really well, and then they'll plug in the appropriate people from the firm, partner, and so forth, that makes sense based on what they're hearing the needs are that they've uncovered. And then it's a team sell all the way through. And the relationship development, it may have started with a BDE, but it's certainly going to end with the team who's going to be doing the services.
Okay, so you are not an accountant. Is anyone in your team an accountant? And can a non-accountant sell accounting services?
Well, thank goodness they can because I am not an accountant and neither is anyone on my team. So everyone has a sales background. They come from different industries before they came into the accounting world. And yet they can speak intelligently with our business owners and prospective clients all across the country about what Raymond can do for them. And so, yes, absolutely non-accountants working side by side as a team with our accountants to win that business. We like to say at Raymond, nobody goes it alone, and we hunt in packs, and that's proved to work really well for us.
Okay, so I think accountants out there that might be listening, and they know how to manage a partner that has a business development, goal. What's it like to actually manage someone like you, or to manage the salespeople on your team? What are the similarities or differences between the two?
Yeah, I appreciate that question because it is different. And I think there's a perception out there that, all BDEs, they're just motivated by money. That's all they care about. And I'm here to tell you, as a career salesperson in other industries as well as this one, that that's not always the case. Yes, a part of our income may be dependent upon how we perform. Well, that's a unique person, and that requires a unique skill set in managing them, right? Because it's a different motivation. So obviously, your BDEs are non-billable. Things when you first start with a new BDE, they're not going to turn ROI around in that first month, probably. It may take a little while. And so setting really great action plans in place for them so you can see their actions that are happening that are going to lead up into those closed sales in the end. Another thing I would caution is the BDE, right? They have to know a little bit about everything your firm does. And so they may not be plugged into that bigger firm picture. but they need to be. They need to understand what's happening in the firm. And then my other tip would be with any BDE as you're managing them, be very clear with expectations and set goals. We salespeople, we love that. We like to have very clear expectations so that we can meet them. Your average BDE, they tend to be a little competitive and they love to achieve. They love recognition for that achievement. So if the goals are very, very clear, that just makes our lives that much easier. And chances are they're going to achieve those goals.
So are you talking about goals outside of like a sales amount, or, is the process hey, Nikki, go develop 200, 500, a million, whatever that dollar is, business, and go? Or are there other goals that actually matter to salespeople?
I think there are. I think when I mentioned being part of the bigger firm picture, a BDE needs to be treated just like anyone else at the firm. Yes, we're unique from everyone else, right? We're different from everyone else in the firm, but we care about our firms just like the other associates in the firm do. And I think that we need to treat them as such, right? So some of those goals, BDEs, well, I would say their time is limited that they have to sell each day, right? We call it, the sunrise to sunset kind of mentality where those are golden hours, right? And we need to be using those to be moving business forward and doing all of that. But BDEs really enjoy buying into the firm culture and being a part of an office. And from what I've seen, it's been very, very rewarding, and it keeps your associates happy and keeps them with the firm if you can engage them in other ways. So it might be something as simple as coaching your up and coming associates who need some BD help, getting them involved in that coaching role, helping run a practice growth meeting, right? Where you bring all the partners together and maybe others on a regular basis. And should the BD be helping run that meeting? 100%. So there are other activities I think they can get involved in the firm that we find very rewarding on our side.
One thing that I've seen happen in firms is they get somebody like you in there that's multi-talented, and they suddenly pull you into everything because you can contribute so much. And then, that quota, that developing new business seems to take the back burner to the people knocking at your door asking for help.
Right.
How should firms balance that?
Boy, that's a great one. It's very tough, right? And I think that expectations, are you meeting with your BD and your BD leader on a regular basis to say, where are we with the expectations for the year so far? And that careful management of them. If we're going to ask them to step into roles other than constant selling, we need to be careful, right? And understand that's going to affect things. It's just like a partner in the firm who's a huge rainmaker, right? And they have billable requirements that they're trying to meet. They have client expectations, they have firm expectations, but they're making it rain as well. And so I would say, similarly to that, it's a balance that you need to find there that makes the BDE happy as well as the firm.
Okay, so you have a team, so business developers report to you. Who do you report to? Or if you were in a firm by yourself and you were a solo BDE, who should that person report to?
That's tough. Yes. So I've seen it done a lot of different ways. So as a BD leader in my firm, I report right up to the top. And so with our current structure, we've got CEO, and then we have like COO, Chief Growth Officer is that next level. And then I'm part of a team that reports up to that Chief Growth Officer. Previously, before we had a CGO, I reported up directly into the COO and had, of course, dotted lines to the CEO. So we take it really seriously. We take BD very seriously at Rehmann, and I think that elevated position really demonstrates that. Now, not everybody has time, capacity, huge teams to do that with. I understand. And so, what I would recommend is choose wisely within the firm. Do you have maybe a rainmaker who's really great at developing business, who just seems to get it when it comes to BD? They might be a great choice. They're going to understand all of the things we talked about with, hitting a quota, having a sales goal, holding people accountable. And that's really what it's all about. I feel like someone who holds themselves very accountable to BD growth, they might be a great option of somebody to manage these type of people.
Okay, so let's look at the person that you actually report to. How should that person oversee their business developer? Like, what does that relationship look like between, the BDE and, whoever oversees them?
Right, right. Number one, understand what motivates them. Don't make assumptions, ask them, right? So it's just like managing anyone, whether a BD or not. You need to understand what motivates your people. And once you have a good understanding of that, you can kind of tailor your management from there. I do recommend some things, recognizing their actions as well as their sales, right? That it's not just about the dollar, it is about the dollar. We all know. But recognizing those great actions that they have. Katie, I know you've been chasing this new client for, 18 months, and I know we're not there yet, but we're having some great conversations. We know when the time comes, it's going to be us, whatever that may be, and making sure that you can see that. But that relationship, I think it's really important to hold that person accountable. Your BDE team expects it, and I'll be honest with you, any BDE, in my opinion, that's worth right the expense, wants to be held accountable. So I think that accountability can come in a number of different forms, but I would suggest number one, you have a goal. You have a quota, whatever you want to call it. Some people don't like the word quota, but I feel like that's really what it is. At a bare minimum, these are the dollars you're bringing in this year. Then we want to dissect that goal a little bit. Is it within a specific industry? We need to be targeted with our growth, right? And we need to make sure that those BDEs are bringing in the right type of clients. And so we could set some other goals around what type of clients they're bringing in. There's a certain area of the firm you may be trying to grow, and setting some targeted goals around that as well. And I promise you, a good BDE, they're going to appreciate that very specific direction.
So the best firms out there probably have sales pipelines. Even if a firm doesn't, BDEs live and breathe by their pipeline. What does this look like? Should I be sharing my pipeline with the person I report to, my sales manager, whether that be a you or somebody else, or should you be asking for it? Should stuff move? Like what's the role of the pipeline in that management?
Great question. The pipeline is really the key to everything, because if you're not constantly filling that pipeline, how can you achieve anything, right? And close it at the end of that pipeline. I believe pipelines, to answer your question, they should be completely public at all times. This is not something you hide what you're working on, right? For a number of reasons. One of the biggest being there may be someone in the firm that once they see your pipeline and what you're working on, they may be able to add something to it. Like, oh, I know someone who knows that person. Let me connect you, right? I have some history on that specific prospective client. Let me give that to you. I also think with pipelines that at a bare minimum, a monthly review with a BDE team is key. And in that review, it's the sales manager's opportunity to not just get aware of what's in the pipeline, but to coach to it. Wow, this is a great opportunity. Tell me more about it. Tell me what you're doing next. So when I coach my team, each have one-on-one meetings with me every month. And during that meeting, they know my expectations for the meeting. Before we get to the meeting, that pipeline is what I call clean. And a clean pipeline consists of correct dates, correct dollar amounts. And I can clearly click on that opportunity at any time and see within our CRM system what that next step the BDE has planned. So if you've already delivered a proposal, you've presented, you've done everything you can do to try to win this business, and you're waiting for a decision, I simply want to see at what date are you going to follow up if you have a decision or not, right? What are you doing to supplement that? So the pipeline review is really a key, I think, from accountability standpoint, as well as just I have to have that insight. As a sales BDE leader, I need to know what's in our pipeline, right? And what we're working on. And so I would suggest that pipeline should certainly come from the whole firm too. Pipelines can be made up the greatest percentage by BDE activities, but also what's everyone else doing. And that allows the firm to get a really good grasp around what's happening. Are these right clients for us? And how much do we have enough in the pipeline to hit our goals for this year?
Important questions that a lot of firms don't pay attention to, but the pipeline is, it's your lifeblood. It's, if it's not full, it says a lot about your future growth and whether you're going to hit your goals or not.
Sure does.
So what should a successful BDE be doing? And I guess where I'm coming from is, I bet you don't do the exact same thing as anyone else on your team. With the exception of one thing that you said about the selling next steps. I bet the next step is probably something that's pretty uniform. But give me an example of how a BDE may spend their time, that sunrise to sunset that you mentioned.
Sure, sure. Well, it depends on expectations. In our firm, We expect our BDs to be hunters. So, what do I mean by a hunter? They're out there hunting new business the firm wouldn't have without them, right? They're out there networking, creating relationships, cultivating referral sources. They're on the hunt for that new business at all time within their area. We also ask our BDEs to help cross sell, right? They might be involved in a current client. We may have them in a role with the service team where we're selling additional services on some of our key accounts. And so I think that when they get into that role, they tend to be really good at using the CRM. They're really good at coaching through opportunities, and so they get pulled in a lot of directions. So one of the things I don't want to see a BDE do is get put into an administrative role. And I think it's natural because our skill set is different. Like, you're an expert at CRM. Could you put these 10 opportunities in for me? Well, actually, that's probably not my highest and best use of time. So I'm going to ask somebody else to do it. So I would just caution that you protect their time to be used selling, hunting, helping, right? So when a partner has a new opportunity that came from one of maybe their referral networks or something like that, in our firm, those partners are able to also leverage our BDEs to help them close it, which helps them protect their billable time, and it helps them remain accountable. It really helps with the follow up. If you're working with someone on my team, it's perfect in the pipeline, it's set up, right? And we're able to follow that sales process that we have from the beginning to the end and kind of walk through it with our partner and help them get to that finish line.
I love that. And I suspect you have higher win rates as a result of that kind of coaching and handholding through the process.
We absolutely do.
So I guess the one thing, and hopefully, in a post-COVID world, we're better at this, but not seeing people, and we don't see them in the office, you think they're not doing anything. Um, is it okay for business developers to not pop in the office and not be seen? Because, oh my gosh, what if they're just like on the golf course with friends? Like, how do you know that they're really doing something?
Well, I can tell you, I've never met a BDE who likes to be micromanaged. so, so I think understanding first the nature of the type of person who likes to do this job, right? They tend to be very social. They tend to be, very focused on their goals and their network and all of that. So I would say take a little less time worrying about what they're doing every minute and understand that they're going to need a little bit more freedom, I think, than the average person. That being said, sure, keep an eye on things. If they're not meeting their goals and you're not seeing those great actions that get them to their goals, ask questions, right? You want to make sure that they are working hard on what you want to see from them. And I would say also, I've learned in my career at Rehmann that there's a ton of value for me being in the office. My partners will stop by and they want to chat, and they tend to want to do that in person. Or, hey, Nikki, I went to this really cool event and guess who I met? I know they're on our top target list and I want to talk to you about it. That typically doesn't happen via a Zoom call or something like that, or video, right? A lot of times that happens when they see you in person. So while there is value of the BDE team being in the office, I think that there's also a ton of value in them not being in the office and giving them that freedom to do that. Certainly give them direction. If you want them spending time maybe on a board of a not-for-profit that's full of prospective clients, and they want to do things like that. But understand, a lot of times BDEs are spending their own personal time moving business forward as well. They may be at a breakfast meeting at 7 a.m. They may have been at a dinner, a networking dinner the night before until 9:30 p.m., right? So giving them that understanding of that, yeah, we don't expect you to be sitting in front of a computer all day. In fact, it's in the firm's best interest if they're not.
So how do you keep these BDEs motivated? I think, it's hard enough for us to motivate accountants, and having come up on the marketing side, I know motivating marketers is something we challenge with. How do you motivate a salesperson?
Give them respect, number one. They are like my team. I talked about how they are all talented in sales and have achieved great things before they came to Rehmann. So they may not be accountants. They may not know, what our accountant partners know, but they're good at what they do as well. They have experience. They have a track record, right? The job that they have is difficult and it takes a very unique skill set. So number one, I ask that gets respected. Number two, to keep them motivated, you need to ask them what motivates them, right? Nikki, I want to meet with you more than once a month to talk about how things are going. Fine, let's do that, right? Let's meet every couple of weeks then. Others, I really talked to you about this last week. Do we have to meet again, right? So everyone is different. So to keep them motivated, I think, giving recognition is another key to that. So giving them respect, give them recognition when they do something well. I promise you they want it. And making sure that we understand the unique needs of each person. On my team, I have a lot of different personalities. And so some of them really like a hands off approach. Others, they need more hands on. They want to pick up their cell phone when they're driving home from a great interaction and they want to talk to me about it, right? Everybody's very different. So understanding that, I think, keeps them motivated and giving them, the kind of manager that they need seems to really be working.
So when you said respect, you talked about how these people have experience and they have a track record. What do you look for when you hire a BDE? What kind of track record, what kind of background, what makes the top of your resume pile list when you're hiring someone?
Sure. I want to see number one, I won't even look at a resume unless they have like proven sales success, right? Whether that was maybe at a bank or within a large company. I have a couple people on my team who came out of the healthcare field. I came out of the financial institutions field. So I'm looking for someone that I do not have to teach how to sell. They already know to sell, but what I do need to teach them is how to sell within the accounting world. So that's number one. And I think that these people, I'm looking for someone when I'm interviewing them, I'm looking for someone who I believe will be able to gain the respect of their peers within the firm. So there's a certain level of professionalism that I'm looking for, right? An experienced salesperson, I want them to have B2B sales experience specializing in that C suite. That's number one, right? So if they've done business to business sales before, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for business to consumer typically, right? That's not the kind of person we need. So business to business, and they're comfortable and they have the skill set and the education to talk intelligently to the C suite. Now we have a recipe for a great BDE to add into an accounting firm. So we're looking for more than just somebody with, a little bit of sales experience. We always hire minimum bachelor's degree I'm looking for at least about 10 years or more of sales experience before I'll talk to them.
Well, that probably helps get you to that C-suite level. I suspect the new sales roles that people first take on, you're not going and knocking on the door of the C-suite. You've got to work your way up to that.
They're not going to answer that door.
Probably everyone makes a bad hire. How do you know if you have a bad business developer? Like, I've heard cases, those horror stories where like my BDE's been here for 30 days and hasn't brought anything in. And I'm and like, I don't expect them to. You really did? So what is it? How long do you give it? What does it look like? When do you finally know like this person's just not cutting it?
Yeah, oh, that is such a tough conversation, isn't it? I think that, and I've had to let people go due to performance, and I think that in with anyone in the firm, the sooner you can recognize it and accept it, the better. A lot of times, I think letting someone go based on performance is so difficult. And if we enjoyed letting people go because of performance, I almost think there would be something wrong with us, right? So it's a tough job. But the sooner you can recognize it and act upon it, you're doing yourself and that BDE a favor. So if you think that they're not delivering, I think that number one, revisit your expectations. Have you made them very clear? Well, we hired a BDE and we sure hope they sell something. Well, how much? Right? And what type of sales are we looking for? And having realistic expectations. So I get it. A BDE is an investment for the firm to make. And so where does that return on investment start paying off? To me, I want a BDE paying for themselves within 6 months. If
Hmm.
they're not covering their own salary in 6 months, okay. Now that could be helping. It's not all hunting in that 6 months. Some of it may be helping. And what that shows is that they've gained the respect of their peers and they're asking them for help, right? So that first 6 months, it might be handed to them a little bit, but they're able to take it and they're able to close it. And most importantly, they've gained the respect to be part of that team. So after a year, we bump it up. I tend to tier the expectations of that ROI. So as long as I see their salary covered in 6 months, I'm sleeping a little better at night as a sales manager. After 12 months, I want to have a decent number of performance. Now, it's not going to be the same number as other more experienced people on the team, but I continue to ramp that number up perpetually each year, each 6 months, as they go through their onboarding phase of that first couple of years, and then it's fully on after that. But when you think they're not delivering, I would say please start with the expectations. And if they're not providing what they should on those expectations, the sooner you can move them out, the better. I think that ROI is the key to that conversation. And I think we should talk about ROI, not to say, oh, I invested in you. How much are you bringing me? But to make it clear how you measure that so they can understand. Once again, setting sales goals and quotas and ROI expectations are going to be things that BDE can work to achieve that's going to be motivating to them.
I guess the reverse side of that is when a BDE knocks it out of the park, if they're commission based, they can make as much, if not more, than partners. How do I mean, how do people respond to that? How should we be responding to that?
Katie, as an experienced sales manager, you can guess that I've experienced that. And I would say, so have all of our peers who do what I do within the accounting industry. We love to talk about this topic because it's often so misunderstood. So let's say you have a BDE who does knock it out of the park and they win a targeted account that you've been wanting for years, and it's going to bring in all this great new revenue for the firm. Yay, they worked as a team, maybe with your partners, to bring it in. This is such a positive thing. I would say that you need to have a clear commission plan in place for how they will get paid. It needs to be an official firm policy that is signed off on by sales management, maybe even the CEO, COO, whatever, however that works within your firm. But we have a written agreement. Once again, I think you've heard me throughout this podcast talk about how specific expectations are needed in a number of areas, commissions as well. The more simple you can make the commission structure for a salesperson, I think the more they can achieve. So if you give them, if you hunt for the business, you're going to get paid X%. If the partner brings in the business and they ask you to help them close it, that's great behavior, but we're not going to pay you quite as much. It might be a different percent. But then when they knock it out of the park and they land that huge whale you've always wanted, you need to stand behind that commission that you have agreed upon, and you need to pay them for it no matter what it feels like to the partner group. And I would say any salesperson that you see bounce around in different jobs, but they're really successful, and you might wonder why, I would ask them if that's ever happened to them, that maybe they were offered a commission percentage and they knocked it out of the park and then it got taken away from them. It doesn't go well. And that's when they tend to look for something new. So I would just be careful with that. Be careful what you promise. And then when they do it, this is what we wanted. Be careful to make sure you pay them for it. A good commission plan drives behavior. So if you want them to hunt more than they help, pay them more for hunting. If you want to reward them for things that are in a specific service line above other service lines, because that's where you see your growth coming, then pay them more for that service line. Because a good commission program is an incentive to reach that kind of behavior you want to see out of them. So be specific with it, and then please stand behind it when they knock it out of the park.
I think that's great. So if there's someone out there listening now that's like, maybe either I need to change my relationship with my business developer, or gosh, I need to bring one in. What tips would you have for that relationship and that management to get started? Or maybe you're saying, Katie, even before that, they got to get buy-in to hire this person. So maybe that's what it is. Like, where would you have somebody get started to find somebody like you or one of your team members to contribute to their firms?
Yeah, I think that having the conversations at the absolute highest levels of the firm are key. They buy-in at the absolute top of the firm all the way through. Or it might not work. If some partners don't believe in this and they don't think it's a good idea, and they don't have buy-in, it's going to be really difficult. Then you're going to put someone with a unique skill set in front of that non-bought-in person and ask them to work together. It's going to be really, really tough. So I also want to warn you that the search for a BDE is very different from the search for an accountant. So you're looking in different places. You're not looking in your usual places you hire accountants from. and be careful, because everybody knows someone that sells something, and they say, oh, this person sells stuff, we should hire them. And watch out for that, right? You're looking for a professional salesperson. Again, I would go for the B2B, the business to business experience above almost anything else. Well, I know someone who works at a bank. Well, that's great. What do they do at the bank, right? Oh, they're a teller. Well, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for somebody maybe on that commercial loan side, right, where they're selling to businesses. That's a great background to bring into the firm. So, and then when they get there, I just think understand again that they are professionals in what they do, right? And so it is different, and that management of them and how seriously the firm takes it is going to be key, and expectations being very, very clear. And then I would say, if you're the person who manages this BDE, or you have a team of people who report to you, I would say one of the most important roles that you have is to have that person's back, whether it's an argument about a commission, whether it's, which we don't have a ton of those at Rehmann, we're pretty clear in our program, but whether it's a questioning of that commission, or, they're not giving credit to the right people who helped bring it in, whatever it may be. I think one of the most important roles as someone who manages sales, what the important role they can have is to just, from time to time, you need to make sure you're highlighting their names, you're defending them when there's question, because accountants don't always understand the role, and that's okay. They don't have to. They didn't go to school for this, right? It's a different role, but just making sure that you have your ear to the street on what's really going on there, and you're stepping in when needed.
Okay, when we wrap up, I want to hit upon one thing that you said that I think was important that you kind of alluded to was not all business developers are created equal. You're like, I wouldn't hire a teller just because they can sell something. I know that there are hunters. You talked about how you're looking for hunters. I know there are relationship sellers. There are, ones that'll be great at helping and coaching and mentoring and training. So, am I right? Not all BDEs are created equal, and you've got to know what you get and make sure that the person that you get is aligned to what you want them to do.
I couldn't agree more, Katie. And I think that that's okay. It's not a one size fits all situation. So on my team, for example, I have a person who is tried and true a hunter. It's what motivates him. He loves hunting. He does not love maintaining relationships after the sale. That's okay. He's a really nice guy. It's not that he doesn't like people. He does. He just loves the hunt more. And so in his office, he has 100 people he's working with and supporting and selling with. They know that about him, right? So we've had the conversation to say, look, once he sells something, he is absolutely moving on to the next one, and he's going to continue that. In other offices, we have people who are great at selling and hunting, but they also love the relationship. And they're really great at maintaining that relationship after the sale closes in what we call an ambassador role. So they're a non-service team member of the team who has those conversations with, in this case, maybe a business owner, right? Who, they've been working for us a while. This person is not part of the service team, and yet they're in that role of getting feedback, and they're using that listening skill that BDEs have, right? They're great listeners. They're hearing what's going on with the client, and they may be introducing other specialists within the firm to the client. Of course, none of this happens without the partner's knowledge and agreement and all of that, but we certainly have different roles that they fulfill. We have some BDEs who are outstanding at running an office-wide growth meeting. They're so good at it. People are motivated by it. They're inspired. And we have others who support maybe someone like an office managing principal who's running that meeting, and they're there to support them, right? So everybody's a little bit different. And so tweaking those expectations based on their talents, I think, is a key to maintaining. Now, does everybody have the same quota then on the team? And I'm here to tell you they do not. That quota is based on not their talents, but for me, we're geographic salespeople. So is it fair for me, for someone in a small town in northern Michigan, to say, well, you have to bring in, the same amount as a BDE who's sitting in Detroit, Michigan, right? So I will taper that based on geography a little bit, not too much. But there's other ways in that smaller town office, right, that they can bring business in. And some of that is through additional sales to current clients and doing work like that.
All right, I love it. Not everyone's created equal, but if you treat them fairly and set clear expectations and stand behind your word, it sounds like you can have a successful business development team.
I couldn't agree more, Katie.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you joining us today, Nikki. Yeah, I think we're a wealth of information that hopefully people found valuable.
Great. Thanks for having me.
This wraps up another episode of Amplify, the podcast for accounting firm growth. A big thanks to you guys for listening in today. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review on the podcast platform you're listening to us on now. And be sure to listen to other episodes in this business development season. You can learn more about Amplify and our past seasons on the Association for Accounting Marketing website at accountingmarketing.org. The podcast can be found under publications. If you want to learn more about me, reach out on LinkedIn. It's Katie with an IE, Tolin, Tolin. Thanks again, and we look forward to having you join us on another episode again soon.